What is commercial trade? A trade is the action of transferring goods and services from one person to another by getting something in exchange. This transfer of ownership occurs in a market, which is the environment that allows this interaction to happen. A trade is dependent on two major participants, the buyer and the seller. This simple interaction would be called a bilateral trade because it occurs between only two traders. If the trade occurs between more than two traders, it is called a multilateral trade. Just as a trade can occur between individuals, it can also happen between regions due to the fact that each region has a comparative advantage in the production of goods and services over the other ones. Let's now talk a little bit more about the commercial trade in ancient Rome. This civilization began in the 8th century, and it grew from a small town in central Italy to an empire formed by most continental Europe, Britain, northern Africa, western Asia, and the Mediterranean islands. During this period, trade was essential, mainly because its large population of 1 million inhabitants that required goods found through commercial trade. The Roman Empire engaged in these activities through its many land and sea routes that covered the Mediterranean and Black Seas. Most of these routes met in Ostia, the major port located near Rome and the Tiber River. As soon as the goods arrived, the slaves transferred them to Rome. Rome's main trading partners were Spain, France, the Middle East, and North Africa, which supplied them grain, beef, corn, perfumes, leather, silk, and marble, among other things. On the other hand, Rome exported wine, olive oil, pottery, and papyrus. There are some important aspects to consider when talking about trade in ancient Rome, specifically the Roman Empire. First of all, trades were simple since only one currency was used, and there were no complicated custom policies, meaning that the flow of goods in and out of the country was not controlled. Secondly, Roman economy was essentially a competitive market in which a large number of producers competed to satisfy the wants and needs of the Roman population. Most of this production came from private ownership, which means that we are in the presence of a capitalistic economic system. Another important point to mention is the policy of free trade that existed throughout the empire. Under a free trade policy, imports and exports do not have to pay any type of tariffs. Therefore, the prices of goods and services are the result of the equilibrium between supply and demand. Finally, the condition that made possible commercial trade in Rome was the many years of peace within the empire, known as Pax Romana. Safer roads help improve and increase travel and trade throughout the empire. As we know, many aspects of the United States were taken from the Roman Empire, but is commercial trade one of them? Like the Roman Empire, the United States is often described as a capitalistic economy, in which a small group of people control large amounts of money. However, today's American economy can be better described as a mixed economy because the government plays an important role along with private enterprise. Another similarity that it has with the Roman Empire is in terms of currency. Even though it is not the only one used like in ancient Rome, it is the most used because of its stability. Likewise, the United States practices the free trade policy with 17 countries through different trade agreements. In 2010, for example, 41% of its exports went to free trade partner countries. As we can see, it practices a free trade policy, but only with a few nations. Similar to the Roman Empire, the United States is a country known for its economic stability, which encourages other nations to engage in trades with the United States. Nonetheless, an aspect of these two systems that does not agree at all is in terms of customs. While in ancient Rome there were no complicated custom policies, in the United States there are strict custom policies in the transportation of certain goods out or even within the customs territory. As you can see, trade in the United States is very similar to trade in the Roman Empire. Its main roots come from this civilization that existed more than 1,000 years ago. However, the modern world in which we live today makes it more complex.